Okay, so I've got a baby appointment this morning, so I'll be in the afternoon, but we're going to do a quick video of the notes. That way we aren't falling too behind. So we're going to do one type of quadratic formula first, and then we'll do the other after we do a few practice problems. Okay, so we're going to kind of split up this box at the top. So we're going to start by looking at vertex form. So vertex form for a quadratic is a, and then parentheses x minus h squared plus k. So the purpose of this form is to be able to see the vertex. Okay, you can look at this formula and know exactly what the vertex is without having to do any math. Okay, so the vertex is hk. So h and then k. But you have to flip the value for h, meaning if it's positive, make it negative. If it's negative, make it positive. But then the value for k stays the same. And you'll kind of see what I'm talking about when we do an actual example. Okay, the axis of symmetry, we know it's just x equals whatever the x value is. So in this case, it's whatever h is. And then lastly, if a is greater than 0, meaning positive, then it opens up. And if a is less than 0, meaning negative, it opens down. And that'll just help us making sure we're doing the graph correctly. Okay, so here's my vertex form. So again, before we do the standard form side, I want to do some examples first. That way you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's start by looking at example number 2. Okay, so first things first, a is the number that's in front of my parentheses. And for this problem, there's no number written, so a is 1. Because it's positive, that means it opens up, meaning I'm going to have a quadratic that looks like that. Okay, my vertex, remember I'm using my h, but I flip, and then my k, but I keep it the same. So my vertex here is 2, negative 2. And what I'm going to do with that vertex is put it right in the middle of that table. So 2, negative 2. And then lastly, from there, we got to figure out what my axis of symmetry is. That's just x equals whatever that x value is, so 2. So now that I've got this, it gives us a template for how I want to fill out my table so that it will fill out my graph. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is take these x values and go 2 up and 2 down. So what I mean by that is because my vertex 2 is in the middle, I'm going to go up 1, so 3, and up 1 again, 4. And then I'm going to go the other way as well. So 2, then I'll have 1 and 0. So that way, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's all in that order. But now I have to figure out what my y values are. So what I'm going to do is type in this equation. So I'm going to have y equals 1 parentheses x minus 2 squared minus 2. So from there, we can literally see the graph. We can double check my vertex is correct. We can also see my x-intercepts. Okay, but I want to fill out the table. So I'm going to hit that settings tool, hit the table tool. That way I can fill in the rest of my numbers. So if x is 0, I can see that my y value is 2. If x is 1, it's negative 1. I've got the 2, negative 2. 3 and 4 aren't on there, but I can type them in. So 3 would be negative 1, and 4 would be 2. One thing I want you guys to notice is that the first and last y value will be the same, and the second and fourth will be the same. So just kind of making sure we're doing these right. And then lastly, what I want to do is graph. Let's graph those points. So let's see. So my first one is 0, 2. So that's here. I've got 1, negative 1. I've got 2, negative 2. I've got 3, negative 1. And I've got 4, 2. Okay, so I've got the points. Now I just need to connect it. Voila. And again, it should match the one that we found on Desmos. Again, maybe not perfect, but we can even see that those points do match. All right, so let's do that same process again for the next example. Okay, so this time we're looking at y equals negative 2, and then in parentheses, x plus 1 squared plus 4. So remember, a is that first number, so that'd be negative 2. Because it's negative, it's opening down. So we're going to have an upside down quadratic. My vertex Again, we're doing h and k, but this one we flip. This one stays the same. So negative 1, 4. And that goes in the middle of our table. So negative 1, 4. And my axis of symmetry is just whatever that x value is. So x equals negative 1. So I've got that. And again, now I'm looking at my table. So if that's negative 1, 1 more than that is 0. 1 more than that is 1. Let's go the other way. So negative 2 and negative 3. Again, you just want those to be in order. So once we're done with that, let's go ahead and type it in. So x plus 1 squared plus 4. Again, we see the graph. We can check our vertex is negative 1, 4. Now I want to fill in the rest of that table. So hitting that settings, hitting table, and we've got our table here. So let's see. Negative 3 is not on that table, so let's type it in. So that gets us negative 4. Negative 2 is 2. 0 is 2. And 1 is negative 4. So again, pretty much Desmos is going to help us out a lot today. So then we're going to graph our quadratic. So negative 3, negative 4. Negative 2, negative 2. Ooh, excuse me, not negative 2. Excuse me, that's negative 2, 2. My bad. Big difference. Okay, so negative 1, 4. 0, 2. And then 1, negative 4. So here's my graph. And again, it should look pretty similar to the one that we have in our Desmos calculator. All right, let's keep going. So the first one on the back. So this one we have that same process. Let's find our a first, and that's just 1/2. It is positive, so it's going to open up. If it was negative, it would open down. My vertex. So again, flip the first one, keep the second the same. So negative 2, negative 3. And pop that in the middle. So negative 2, negative 3. Okay, so from there, my axis of symmetry is just x equals whatever that x value is. So 2, negative 2, excuse me. And let's fill out that table. So I got negative 2. 1 more than that would be negative 1. 1 more than that would be 0. And then let's go the other way. So negative 3, negative 4. So now we can go ahead and take that quadratic and type it in. So y equals 1/2, and then parentheses x plus 2 squared minus 3. So here's our beautiful graph, but I want to switch it to a table so I can find my other points that'll fit. So let's see. Negative 4 is not on there, so let's type it in. Negative 4 gets me negative 1. Negative 3 is also not in there, so negative 3 gets me negative 2.5. Negative 1 gets me negative 2.5, and 0 gets me negative 1. So again, I can double check that these are right because my first and last are the same, and my second and fourth. And now let's go ahead and graph those points. So I got negative 4, negative 1, negative 3, negative 2.5. So negative 2, 3, or negative 3, negative 1, negative 2.5. And then negative 1, 0. And again, fill that all in. And done. Okay. Cool. So now let's jump back up. Let's jump back up and talk about standard form. Okay, standard form is not as straightforward as the vertex form. So when we're doing this one, my formula is ax squared plus bx plus c. The purpose of this one, I don't really know. It's just kind of the standard form, hence why it's called standard form. But the vertex form is a little bit easier. So purpose, we're just going to put ... Okay, my vertex, we use that by following a formula, and that's negative b over 2a. Okay, and we find the coordinate by using Desmos. Okay, so we're pretty much going to have to solve for that x value in the vertex and then use Desmos to do the rest. Okay, so my axis of symmetry is still just whatever that x equals. So in this case, you could say a, or you could say the formula that we'll follow. And then again, if it's positive, that means it opens up. And if it's negative, it opens down. All right, so now I want to kind of talk to you guys through this standard form. That way you can see what I'm talking about with this negative b over 2a formula. All right, so here we are. So first things first, it's saying, hey, well, what is a? And a in this problem is negative 1. Okay, it's just whatever's in front of that x squared. From there, because it's negative, we know it's going to open down. So now I want to take a look at my vertex. So my vertex, again, I want to follow the form of negative b over 2a. Okay, well, if I'm looking at my formula, or my that's given, I know that a is negative 1, b is 2, and c is negative 1. Those signs matter. So if there's a minus in front of it, treat it as a negative number. So for b is 2. Well, it's saying negative b. It's like thinking the opposite of b. So if b is positive 2, the opposite would be negative 2. On the bottom, I'm doing 2 times a, which is negative 1. So I'd have negative 2 times negative 2, or not times, excuse me, divide, which gives me 1. And that goes in the middle. And that also tells me that my axis of symmetry is x equals 1. So again, I'll do that formula again for our last example. But now this is kind of where Desmos comes back into play. So I'd have negative 1 x squared plus 2x minus 1. So here's my beautiful quadratic. So now I want to switch this to a table. So if I'm looking at 1, my other value would be 0. Okay, but again, just like the other tables, I want to go a little bit up and I want to go a little bit down. So 1, 2, 3, 0, negative 1. So 2 would be negative 1. 3 is not on there, so we can type it in. So negative 4. 0 would be negative 1. And negative 1 would also be negative 4. Okay, it follows that same rule where the first and last are the same and the second and fourth are the same. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're doing these. And then lastly, let's graph our quadratic. So negative 1, negative 4 is here. Negative 0, negative 1 is here. 1, 0. 2, negative 1. And 3, negative 4. So there's my graph. Not as pretty as what Desmos does, but it still works out. So again, not too different. And again, really Desmos heavy to help us graph these. All right, so let's do this one more time for our last one. Okay, so first things first, we got to figure out what a is. And a in this problem is negative 2. Because it's negative, it's going down. So that means it's going to be upside down U just like the last one. Okay, well, for our vertex, we want to fill out that formula, negative b over 2a. So I know that a is negative 2, b is negative 4, and c is 4. So again, for b is negative 4 because of the minus in front of it. But when I'm plugging it into my formula, I want to do the opposite of that. I want to do negative b. So that's going to change that to a positive 4. And I'm going to have 2 times a, which is negative 2. So I would have 4 divided by negative 4, which gives us negative 1. So that tells me that my x equals negative 1. And that's the number I need to pop in the middle. And again, if you're struggling with that fraction, hit divide first, 4 on top, 2 times negative 2. It gives you that same answer too. Okay, so definitely let Desmos help you out there. So then from there, we can finish filling out our table by going up 2. So negative 1 plus 1 gets me 0. Plus 1 again gets me 1. And then going down 2. So negative 2, negative 3. Okay, so from there, this is when we're going to type in our quadratic. So negative 2x squared minus 4x plus 4. Switch it to a table. That way we can fill out the rest of the values. So let's see, negative 3 is not on there, but we can type it in. So this would be negative 2. Negative 2 gets us 4. Negative 1 gets us 6. 0 gets us 4. And 1 gets us negative 2. And now we can graph our points. So let's see here. Negative 3, negative 2 is here. Negative 2, 4. Negative 1, 6 is up here, kind of off my graph. And then let's see, 0, 4. And 1, negative 2. So here's my graph. So again, really Desmos heavy, and if you have no idea where to start, just type it into Desmos because that can also help you find your vertex and make that table. All right. If you have any questions, just let me know and turn in that worksheet when you're done. Thanks.